Alright, today we're on Lake St. Clair. In this video, we're going to show you some tips on how to fish a drop shot. It's a bait that I've used successfully everywhere. Right now, we're going to focus on northern smallmouth fisheries. We're going to try looking for them on the side imager here and cast them right at them. I hope you enjoy and share this video. Okay, let's go over the typical Lake St. Clair drop shot setup. I'm using a medium light 7-foot 2-inch rod. This is a tactical fishing drop shot rod. TF02-72 is the model. Alright, so when it's calm like this, I want to get as far cast as I can. And the way to do that is to have braid as your main line. What I got is 10-pound braid on here on a 2500 series reel. And when you get down to like the last 5 or 6 feet, I go to fluorocarbon. And the reason that is not only can you cast farther, but fluorocarbon is very coily. And when after you've been using it a while and you get a lot of twist from your bait spinning, when you go to cast sometimes, it'll just be a huge bird's nest coming off your reel and it hits that bottom line. You got to see everybody, it's happened to everybody. So what I do is I use braid as the main line to not only give you sensitivity, but to help you cast farther. Now when I get to the end, I'm splicing it onto this 8-pound fluorocarbon. A lot of guys will do it right here. They want it right here, just outside the reel. So none of that fluorocarbon is coming off the reel. So I don't like that little splice knot going through all the eyelets. What I do is I rig it up about 4 feet above my bait, just like that. It's a connection between the two. So when I cast, it's outside the rod tip. So I don't have to worry about it going through all the eyelets, decreasing the length of my cast. I can zing it out there, and the nice clear fluorocarbon, the fish don't see it. Okay, so we're down to the main line here. I got 8-pound fluorocarbon. You always want to use fluorocarbon because it's super clear, and this is a finesse technique, so you don't want the fish seeing your line. Never use braid right to the hook. Look at how good that hook stands out there. I'm going to show you a couple of knots to use. I'm not using a Palomar knot. I never use a Palomar knot like everyone else. The hook is a circle hook, but what makes it special, see that curved in beak on there? That thing gets them right in the roof of the mouth and it pulls in. Hooks them every time. That is the hook I use. It's a little bit bigger than most. It's a 1/0 circle hook. Then you have your leader down to your weight. You have a cylindrical weight here. I use 1/4 ounce to 3/16 ounce. You're always going to catch more fish by using the lightest weight you can get away with. Don't know why that is, but the fish do not like too much of a jerky movement with that bait. If a heavier weight makes the bait look too stiff down there in the water when you tighten up. This is more of a natural presentation when it's super light. The round sinkers, don't care for them. They clog in the weeds. We got a lot of sandgrass on the lake here. We got a lot of glacial till on this lake, which is the rocks that the glaciers left behind. And they're like the size of your fist to the size of your head. And what happens is with those round sinkers, they get caught. Anytime you pull it in between one of them rocks, it gets caught like that. So use the cylindrical sinkers like this. That's what I do. So on leader length varies. In the summer when it's flat, calm like this, sometimes I'll go with a little bit longer length. On the sunny days, it seems the fish want to rise up and maybe eat crankbaits and bust stuff on the surface. I'm definitely using a longer length on those type of days. Cloudy days, the fish seem to be right to the bottom. You throw a crankbait out here and a big bank of clouds come in, they are no longer coming to the surface. It's the bottom. So that's when I'll switch right to a drop shot with a shorter 6 to 8-inch leader. I'll use up to 3-foot leaders. So what you want to have is multiple rods rigged up with different lengths of leaders, and just keep trying until you find one that they want. All right, anytime you're tying a drop shot knot, you want to go through the eyelet like this with the hook up to start with. And this knot, this is a super easy drop shot knot. So I've just made a loop with the line. So I've literally just like coiled it up, made a loop with the line. What I'm gonna do is wrap this around 5 times. You're putting the hook through the whole loop like that. And then all you do is you pull each end tight. You can wet it. Helps lubricate it a bit. So you have the straightest knot you can get for a drop shot. Just like that. You know, a lot of experienced drop shot guys are gonna look at this video and go, man, he is fishing that bait way too aggressive. But I'm gonna tell you, these smallmouth, when it gets flat calm like this, that's what triggers them, is the snapping it. What I do is I snap it up and I let it do a glide slowly back to the bottom, and that sinker will slowly come down. That bait will be moving very active overall compared to a normal drop shot angler. You come here to St. Clair, these fish love the rapid movement. I don't know if it's because that's what the gobies do when they're threatened. They leap up and then they settle back down. But these fish, you know, some days it's all about being slow, real just barely shaking the bait. But man, a lot of days, especially these sunny, calm days, give it about literally a 2-foot hop, let it glide back to the bottom. Boom. So what makes this 7-foot 2-inch rod fantastic is how far you can cast it. You know, a little tiny 6-foot walleye jigging rod is not the greatest drop shot rod. So I want to chuck it out there, and like I say, on these calm days like this, popping it hard is strangely very effective. Here's a real strange tip. We're all trying to find feeding fish all the time. On St. Clair, one of the biggest predictors of a good fishing day for me after 27 years of guiding is if I see sturgeon jumping where I'm fishing. And the theory is these fish are active that day because they're usually getting a lot of perch bites and things like that. Get bit off by a muskie, things like that. If the sturgeon are feeding heavily, the theory is they're jumping to clear the stuff out of their gill rakers and things like that. They're sucking in all that sandgrass and stuff on the bottom. If I see sturgeon jumping, I'm catching muskie, I'm catching perch, I'm catching smallmouth, whatever. If I get out here and it's flat calm, I've seen 50 to 100 sturgeon jump in one 12-hour period. It could be all the same fish, but if I see fish jumping, sturgeon specifically, I'm gonna have a good day. If I come out here and I see not a single one, I usually have a tough day. Don't know what it is, but when I'm on the western half of Lake St. Clair where you have a little more current, I'm always looking for jumping sturgeon. Don't know why, it predicts a good day. So when I set the hook, you really don't want to snap this thing hard. You're literally just pulling it into him. You know, that hook is razor sharp. And if that bait's in his mouth, you're going to hook him right in the corner every time, right in the roof of the mouth. So really resist snapping it. You could just break it off. After a while, around that knot and stuff, your line will get weak. You start snapping that hook set really hard, you're going to end up busting off. Okay, remember I was telling you about the circle hook. Look where that thing is. that little sharp beak like that. Look at that. Right in the roof of the mouth. I was giving that thing a little snap. He's on there. Find yourself getting excited and you're really catching them, try to resist reeling in the bait real fast, because what happens is when you're retrieving that bait and it's twisting like this, and eventually you're gonna have this big coil of line right here. It's gonna create you a mess. So try to resist really reeling the bait in fast anytime you're retrieving it back to the boat. You know, we are really spoiled with today's electronics. With the side imaging, active target, 360 Humminbird. I mean, it's crazy how spoiled we are, and it never ceases to amaze me how many people do not understand how to use them. They buy this expensive graph and never open the manual. That's one thing I talk about in seminars all the time. If you're going to be fishing around here, deep water, Detroit River, Lake St. Clair, and you're gonna be drop shot fishing or jigging for what, you gotta learn how to use that stuff. You gotta learn to maximize it so you can find out where the harder bottoms are, stuff shooting out to the side, what's a fish, what's a poly. You gotta understand that. You wanna become a better fisherman, you gotta understand your graphs first. It's one of the most expensive things on your boat. You know, if you're gonna make the investment, learn how to use them. Go on YouTube, follow all kinds of stuff. I'm telling you, if you learn how to use your graphs, you will catch way more fish in a year. You know, as the drop shot has gained in popularity, you know, it came out of Japan. Mostly the northern guys were using this thing up here on the Great Lakes, but the southern boys have really discovered this as for a way to catching largemouth. I've used this thing in 2 foot, 3 foot of water in Potomac River, California Delta. I've used it down to 60 foot in some deep reservoirs. It's a lot more versatile than people think. If you're fishing for largemouth, boy, that really opens up a whole can of worms there. You could fish it even on heavy braid and in real thick cover. But primarily, I'm fishing in the north, hammering the smallmouth. I've used it 3-4 foot on St. Clair, and I max it out at probably 20, you know. A little bit deeper on maybe Lake Erie, but boy, it's got a lot of versatility that people don't really think about. Look where that hook is.
Yeah. See that?
Okay, so oftentimes when it's flat calm like this, you really can't do anything but you know, try to cast around. Try to locate fish on the side imager, looking out there and try to target them, trying to get the angle that they're on. Some days when it's super windy out here and you're dragging tubes, well, drop shot fishing is super effective in the wind. And what you want to do is resist dragging. You put a 3/8 weight on there and drag it. You know what I do is I'll turn the boat with the wind at my back and I'll chuck it out straight in front of the boat as far as I can. And when it gets even with me, I'll reel it in and chuck it. And sometimes when the wind's blowing like that, the fish are super aggressive and they see that thing coming down to the bottom, boom, they're on it. So instead of dragging around like you're dragging tubes, try to just chuck it straight in front of the boat, and when it gets even, reel it in, chuck it out again, and just drift with the wind at your back, and you'll be covering a ton of water when you do this. Okay, so let's talk about baits. You know, it's endless. When I started, I would primarily drop shot tubes. I'd get a ripped up tube and I'd put that little hook through the nose and you get a lot more life out of it. But there's so many drop shot baits on the market now. There's ones that are supposed to be Texas rigged. There's stuff that's got all kinds of appendages on it. It really boils down to the primary forage that they're after that day. You might have a lot of emerald shiners on your lake, but if the bass are coming up spitting up crayfish, you probably want to go to something closer to the weight, so like a 4, 5, 6 inch leader, and something with a lot of appendages on it, or something more bulky. Same with the goby, something more bulky. Emerald shiner, something more clear. Yellow perch, something dark. Just play with it. I'm not going to push on anything on you. We've been catching them on a Cisco color producer today, but man, it's endless on the amount of baits that you can rig. You can rig them wacky style, Texas style, through the nose, Texposed. I mean, it's really endless. But you're going to find your favorite bait, and you're going to probably not stray from it. Drop shot and works, folks.